Well, Siren 2 is just about over, but not quite yet. Not before we take a look at the timeline, just put things in order, and see if maybe things make a little bit more sense. When we do, this is probably going to take a little while. So let's get started. The earliest point in Siren 2, 29 years ago, Ryuhei and Shu find Kanai on the island shore. They take her in, and Kanai becomes like a member of their family. But, unknown to Ryuhei, Kanai begins teaching Shu how to unlock the gates of the underworld. That's the plan, to get Shu to unlock them and release Mother. Shu has no idea that Kanai is up to anything devious. He loves Kanai, it's his big sister, and Ryuhei, he notices how Kanai looks like his dead wife, and just feels like he has to take her in. Then 2 years ago, after the events of Siren 1, Harumi is airlifted out of the wreckage of Hanuda by Takeaki. Takeaki sees a vision of arms reaching out of the village to grab them, and that caused him to be haunted by nightmares ever since. Negative 3100. Ryuko, a dove who had been living as a human with her boyfriend Soji, is found by Yuri, the latest dove sent by Mother. Yuri murders Ryuko for abandoning her mission to free Mother, because Ryuko had decided that she just liked living as a regular human being. She didn't want to be a dove, to be on this mission to free Mother. She just wanted to live with Soji, but that's not how things would turn out. Negative 2900. Akiko, a friend of Ryuko, is shocked to see on the news that she's been murdered and that Soji is the prime suspect. Soji storms in and holds Akiko at knife point to plead his innocence. He says that he passed by Ryuko on the stairs while going up to the apartment and found a dead woman inside. The police say that the dead woman is Ryuko, but Soji doesn't know how that could be true. He asks Akiko for help, and Akiko agrees. Presumably, Akiko used her flashback ability to look into Soji's past and see that he was telling the truth. But where do they go? How can she possibly help him clear his name? Well, Akiko's psychic powers lead them to Yamajima Island. I don't think either of them know why. But the reason that Akiko is being led there is because she is the reincarnation of Kanai, and she is being drawn to the island, and so the two of them go to the island, feeling that somehow that'll lead them to help Soji. In the end, it does, but probably not in the way that they expected. Negative 9. Mamoru stands at the docks, trying to find a boat that'll grant him passage to Yamajima Island, as the magazine he's working for has given him an assignment to write an article about it. He meets Ikuko, who is working for a boat that will be going to the island, as her own psychic powers are drawing her there. She doesn't tell Mamoru about the boat, however, either because she's just being sarcastic, or maybe because she feels that the island is dangerous, and is trying to, push Mamoru away from trying to go there, as maybe she knows it's a bad idea. However, Mamoru finds out about it anyway, as Shu Mikami arrives, who is the one who has hired the boat to go to the island. He is a famous author, and I guess that if a famous author is going to charter your boat to go to the haunted island, and if he's paying well, I guess you're going to do that. Akiko and Soji arrive right before the boat is about to leave, and the captain just agrees to take everyone on board because Shu says, "We gotta go. Get everyone on board, it's fine, let's all go." Negative 7 hours. Mamoru, Ikuko, Akiko, Soji, Shu, and Tsukasa, of course, are all on the boat going to Yamajima Island. However, a storm begins rocking the boat, and a large shape that looks like Odashigo passes by. The seas turn red. The boat presumably capsizes. Negative 6 hours. Shu sinks underwater and remembers when he and Kanai had escaped the island years ago. Kanai sinks into the water and appears to dissipate into foam while telling Shu not to look. Apparently, this is the reason that Shu became nearly blind. I guess he took Kanai's command very literally, and he proceeded to not look ever again. Now, the time frame is confusing. It says -6 hours, but it's unclear when this actually happens. Shu says on the island that he's trying to unlock his lost memories, so did he not remember this yet? Also, this cutscene is unlocked after Shu is absorbed into Mother, so it might be that Shu only remembered this after his death. I'm not entirely sure. -5 hours. Shigeru, a cop from the 80s, had taken his own boat to Yamajima. Due to the time hijinks on the island, multiple time periods are taking place at the same time, and so this cop from the 80s is sharing the same time period as people from the 70s and from the 2000s. Shigeru came to the island due to rumors from the fishermen that they had seen a young woman there. Due to Yamajima Island having been mysteriously deserted in the 70s, and since Shigeru had been born and raised on the island, he takes interest in this rumor and returns to Yamajima to investigate it. However, this turns out to be a bad idea. He runs into Shiryo, ghosts of darkness who attack him, and Shigeru escapes after noticing a ferry, an entire ferry, in the woods. -4 hours. A group of fishermen from the island, and also from the 70s, led by Suneo and Tomoe Oda, decide that they're going to kill Kanai, as they believe she's a witch. So this society, this group, these islanders, these fishermen, they're living on the island right now, even though Shigeru is on the island, and for him, everyone vanished 10 years ago. And also, some people from 2006 are about to arrive. So, again, time is getting compressed together. -3 hours. Mamoru wakes up on the island after the boat had capsized. He meets Yuri, and the two of them escape from a Shibito that is trying to kill her. It seems that the Shibito was a fisherman that Yuri had hypnotized to take her to Yamajima Island. I guess Yuri intended to use that fisherman to unlock the gates of the underworld, but something killed him, and he got turned into a Shibito by a Shiryo. The Shibito is going after Yuri. The Shibito, of course, as we know, the Shiryo, come from Odashigo. And Yuri is a dove that comes from Mother. And the things that come from these two gods do seem to fight each other. Now, at the same time that this is happening, Ryuhei tucks young Shu into bed for the final time, as Ryuhei would be murdered a few seconds later by Kanai when he went downstairs. The group of fishermen arrive at the Mikami house and chase after Kanai. Both Shu and Kanai run out of the house. At -2 hours. Mamoru and Yuri are safe for the moment after escaping the Shibito. Yuri tells Mamoru that her mother is trapped in the island, and she needs Mamoru's help to free her. Mamoru is a bit confused by this, but he agrees to help. And meanwhile, a JSDF helicopter crashes on the island. Only two soldiers survive, Yorito and Takeaki. Yorito cries over his dying friend, Sergeant Okita, but Takeaki says that they need to keep moving. They help up Okita and start moving towards the amusement park. Meanwhile, the adult Shu Mikami wakes up at the front stairs of his childhood home, presumably appearing there after the boat had capsized. But how did he get from the shore to the house? We don't know. He opens the door to find his child self and the dead body of his father, Ryuhei. Shu is shocked, as he remembers finding his dad's body as a child and seeing a man with a dog walk in the front door. Shu realizes that he was the man with the dog. The child Shu escapes the house through a window and meets up with Kanai, and the two of them attempt to avoid the fishermen who are hunting them. Well, hunting Kanai. They're not hunting Shu. They're only really going after Kanai. Presumably, the fishermen going after Shu would have just made sure that he was safe. They're really only trying to kill Kanai here. And while this is happening, Sunio approaches the front door of the Mikami house, but Ryuhei's body is possessed by a Shiryo and chases Sunio away. The adult Shu then has to avoid the fisherman himself. Presumably the fishermen are attacking adult Shu because he's a stranger to the island. Shu and Tsukasa eventually find an old drawing of Kanai that Shu had buried as a child, but a rickety shack collapses on Tsukasa, Shu is forced to run away from the scene by an attacking fisherman, and he believes Tsukasa to be dead. -1 hours. Takeaki and Yorito arrive at the amusement park with Okita, who has now died. However, Okita stands back up as a Shibito and fires at Yorito. The two soldiers shoot down Okita and the other Shibito they find at the park. They escape the hostile amusement park, but not before finding 2 items: a detonator, though the TNT that was supposed to be with it is missing, and an unlabeled pill, maybe more than 1 pill. Takeaki takes both items. Meanwhile, Akiko and Soji wake up at the harbor, and Akiko uses her flashback ability to see Kanai teaching Shu about opening the 7 gates. Soji picks up a gold locket from the ground nearby, but the two look up into the sky as they see an oncoming tsunami. Meanwhile, Kanai is looking for the child Shu, who she put on a cable lift to move him to another area of the island. Kanai is accosted by Tomoe, but Kanai pushes her down and runs off. 0 o'clock, a whole bunch of things happen. Well, first, Mamoru and Yuri meet Takeaki and Yorito, but Yuri shies away from Takeaki's flashlight. Takeaki asks what's the matter with her, but the conversation doesn't last long, as a tsunami of red water rises up in the distance. Then, over on the left, after the tsunami hit, Mamoru he wakes up, of course, but now he finds that he has the power to sightjack. Shortly after that, Mamoru questions Yuri about if her mother actually exists. Yuri's upset by this. She runs away. Meanwhile, in the middle, Akiko and Soji wake up after being struck by the tsunami. Akiko realizes that she can sightjack and sees Soji through the eyes of a Shibito as Soji picks up a strange fruit and eats it. Akiko and Soji meet back up and escape from the area. Meanwhile, Ichiko, a student that was on board the Bright Wind, a ferry that went missing in the 80s, sinks into the ocean water after going overboard, and Ichiko dies. Meanwhile, Kanai and Shu, who manage to find each other, are cornered by the Odas and the fishermen. The bridge that Kanai and Shu are standing on crumbles, and the two of them fall into the ocean. Immediately afterward, the tsunami rises in the distance to strike the fishermen. Presumably, Mother summoned the tsunami out of anger that the islanders ruined Kanai's mission, because Kanai was training Shu to unlock the gates of the underworld. Kanai's out of the picture. I mean, so much for Mom. And at this point, everyone on and around Yamajima Island from multiple time periods vanish from reality, and they're pulled into a copy of the island. Supposedly, I would assume, created by Mother. 1 o'clock. Yuri, now on her own. I believe that she is in the upper left right there. Yuri's now on her own, and she sees the bright wind in the distance and heads towards it. Then, in the lower left here, a being that seems to be Ichiko wakes up inside the bright wind. However, she's not actually Ichiko, rather a copy of Ichiko created by Otashigo. She's some kind of doppelganger monster that came into being because the real Ichiko died in the sea. However, this copy Ichiko does not actually know that she's a copy. Ichiko manages to meet with Shigeru, and the two of them escape the bright wind after Ichiko pummels a Shibito to get her tennis runner-up trophy back. Priorities. Meanwhile, the third window here is Takeaki. He was unconscious, well, he regains consciousness after being hit by the tsunami, but before then, he has a nightmare involving Harumi. Even though he doesn't really know what the situation he's in quite yet, he is having nightmares, troubling nightmares, remembering Harumi and the hands that reached up for him. Despite his cool, collected exterior, Takeaki is not holding it together as well as it might appear on the surface. And in the lower right, Tomoe walks around in a daze after being hit by the tsunami. She just asks where her missing hair ornament is. She runs from a Shibito and stumbles off of a bridge and is impaled on a spike below. Tomoe dies. 2 o'clock. Ikuko, who had earlier fell into the Red Ocean from the boat, she wakes up on the island after a nightmare where she was taunted by her classmates for having psychic powers. Isn't that always the way? With the schoolgirls getting taunted to have the psychic power? It'd be completely rad to have psychic powers. Why did the schoolgirls always get made fun of for that? Meanwhile, Takoyaki and Yorito search the Bright Wind. However, Takoyaki has apparently taken one of the pills that he found earlier, as he acts manic. And Takoyaki wanders off by himself while Yorito searches for Yuri, who he catches a glimpse of. Yorito finds Yuri, and the two of them escape from the ferry. Meanwhile, on the right, Shigeru and Ichiko hole up in the Mikami house after leaving the Bright Wind. The plan is to get back to Shigeru's boat and leave the island. Ichiko gets some sleep, while Shigeru wonders why bad luck always seems to find him. Also, something that never really comes up is the question of if Shigeru's boat actually still exists in this copy island, even if they made it to the boat. It's not like they'd be able to go anywhere. 3 o'clock. After escaping the Bright Wind, Yuri starts to work her persuasion powers on Yorito, but she's interrupted by Takoyaki, who sticks a gun in her face. Yuri runs away while Yorito is furious with Takoyaki, not understanding why he did that, or why he's acting strangely. Presumably, Yorito goes off on his own after this, leaving Takoyaki on his own. Afterwards, Yuri makes her way to the amusement park, where Mamoru finds her. Yuri reveals that this realm is a copy of the real world, and they need to find Mother before everything reverts to chaos. Mamoru agrees to help her, and the two explore the amusement park to unlock the gates to the underworld. And then meanwhile, Soji meets up with Shu, and is enthusiastic at meeting the famous author, though Shu is not as enthusiastic. Shu gets Soji to help him explore the island, as he needs help after losing Tsukasa. 4 o'clock. Now on his own, Takoyaki takes the remaining pill and wanders around, calling for Yorito. He sees a vision of Harumi and fights his way to an apartment that he didn't actually need to go to in order to find her, because she's not really on the island. He's just hallucinating her. Meanwhile, Soji and Shu arrive at the amusement park. Shu feels like he's on the verge of recovering his lost memories, and asks Soji to continue to help him. Off-screen, they find the gaping maw of the underworld that Mamoru and Yuri opened, and I suppose they thought it would be a good idea to go down into it. 5 o'clock. Yuri and Mamoru go down into the gaping maw of the underworld. Yuri flashes Mamoru and reveals that she has just a big old face on her chest. The headless body of Mother rises up behind Yuri, happy that one of the doves finally accomplished her mission. Yuri merges with Mother, presumably becoming her head. Mamoru is shocked at this turn of events. Over on the right, meanwhile, Shigeru and Ichiko run into Tsuneo Ota, who dies in front of them and becomes a Shibito. Shigeru and Ichiko explore the area, eventually ending up cornered by the Tsuneo Shibito in a weapons storage bunker underground. Ichiko smiles at Tsuneo, and he backs off, presumably recognizing that Ichiko is a creation of Otoshigo. After that, the siren sounds, and Ichiko suddenly turns on Shigeru, murdering him with a knife. As Shigeru dies, he laments that he let his family down. Ichiko then comes back to her senses and realizes that she's not actually Ichiko. She remembers that the original Ichiko died, and that she's something else entirely. 6 o'clock. Mother attempts to absorb Mamoru into her body, but she's stopped by Ikuko, who suddenly appears at the scene. Soji and Shu arrive too, and Shu sees Mother as Kanai. Shu goes in for a hug, and gets a much bigger hug than he bargained for. Just so much, just a hug with so many tentacles and digestion, which is usually not part of hugs, but it was with this one. Shu is absorbed into Mother, which prompts her to start birthing Yamireis. Akiko arrives, yelling for Shu to stop, but she's too late. Soji and Akiko, reunited, run back up the stairs, and are followed by Mamoru and Ikuko, who are also being followed by countless Yamireis. 8 o'clock. Mamoru and Ikuko continue to climb up the stairs to the surface, which make you wonder how many stairs there are. This is like 2 hours later. However, their progress is blocked by Shiryo descending down the stairs. Fortunately, the Shiryo and the Yamirei start fighting, allowing Mamoru and Ikuko to keep climbing. Meanwhile, Ichiko is wandering in a daze, and remembers that the original Ichiko fell overboard into the ocean. She says that she wants to return to the sea, and becomes upset as she realizes that her will is being overcome by Odashigo's. 11 o'clock. Ikuko and Mamoru, having escaped from the underworld, take refuge in the Mikami house. Ikuko decides that she's going to go off on her own, and reveals to Mamoru that she has psychic powers. For whatever reason, she doesn't want to be around people. Maybe she doesn't trust her own powers, maybe she doesn't trust other people. Ikuko keeps things close to the chest. It's hard to know what her motives are. 12 o'clock. Akiko and Soji have a conversation, and Soji comes to accept that the dead woman he saw in his apartment was really Ryuko. The two of them are startled to see that the tower in the distance reaches up to an upside-down version of the tower coming through the clouds. Ikuko proceeds to use her flashback power to find out what happened to Kanai and Shu as they try to escape from the Islanders. Though it isn't clear if Akiko knows why she is so interested in this. That reason being is that she is the reincarnation of Kanai. 13 o'clock. Takoyaki rests, looking up at the sky, and sees that there's another version of the island through the clouds. He hears someone yell out nearby, and he stands up. Ichiko is being chased by Yamabito, and Takoyaki helps her escape from the area. 14 o'clock. Yorito walks in on Takoyaki threatening Ichiko with his gun, as Takoyaki suspects that there's something wrong with Ichiko. Why does he suspect? Maybe a sixth sense? Maybe his contact with Hanada has given him some sort of, maybe, attenuation with the supernatural? For whatever reason, he felt that something was wrong with Yuri, and now he feels that something is wrong with Ichiko. But when Yorito walks in, he only sees that Takoyaki is threatening a teenage girl, and so Yorito shoots Takoyaki through the back. Takoyaki falls to the ground, dead. Afterwards, Yorito promises that Ichiko will be alright. However, Yorito's not able to make good on that promise, as Ichiko is chased away by a dog Yamabito. Yorito gives chase, but by the time he catches up to Ichiko, she has been overtaken by Odashigo, and she proceeds to go on a shooting spree. Yorito tries to get her to stop by finding Noriko's bracelet and giving it back to her, but it's no use. Meanwhile, Soji and Akiko take a break. Soji sings happy birthday to Akiko, and gives her the little gold amulet that he found at the beginning of the game. Presumably, Soji falls asleep here, and Akiko walks away as she's caught up in following her flashbacks of Kanai's past. 15 o'clock. Mamoru boards the Bright Wind, and proceeds to defeat as many Yamirei and Yamabito as he can on the ship. Meanwhile, Soji, now awake and searching for Akiko, runs into Ikuko in the forest. Soji thinks he's seen Ikuko before, but Ikuko runs away before Soji can say more. I don't know if Ikuko realizes that Soji was Ryuko's boyfriend. Maybe not. But probably the reason that Soji recognizes Ikuko is maybe he's seen a picture of her somewhere as he was living with Ryuko. That could possibly be it. And then meanwhile, Akiko is following her flashbacks, as well as the ghost of Shu, who is now appearing. She destroys Ryuhei Mikami, freeing his soul, just stabbing him with the stick on her way as she's been following these visions. That's one of the things that Shu wanted. The ghost of Shu was directing Akiko to please kill Ryuhei, free his soul, and she does. 16 o'clock. After his rampage through the bright wind, Mamoru rests and is found by Yorito. Mamoru's discouraged. He feels there's no hope left, but Yorito gives him a little bit of a pep talk and gets Mamoru on his feet again. The two leave the bright wind together. 17 o'clock. Akiko finally traces the flashbacks to their source and sees the moment of Ryuhei's murder. But Akiko sees herself as the murderer, and Kanai's personality, asleep within Akiko, awakens and replaces Akiko. "18 o'clock. Mamoru and Yorito approach the tower, and Mamoru says that he believes that the top of the tower intersects with the real world, so they need to reach the top. Yoriko's skeptical, but agrees to go along with him. However, Yorito is eventually knocked off the tower by Tsuneo, who is now a Ko-Yamabito. Tsuneo is then destroyed by Mamoru, and his soul is freed. 19 o'clock. Soji, now all alone, despairs over the situation. However, Soji finds a new friend, as Shu's ghost leads him to Tsukasa, who is still alive. So Shu, his ghost, was really only concerned with two things. First, please kill my father, and the second, for Soji to please take Tsukasa. And that was all. That was the only things that we saw Shu's ghost do in the game. I guess after those were done, then that was all that was needed. 20 o'clock. Ikuko approaches the tower, knowing that she needs to reach the top to stop Mother from escaping to the real world. She climbs the tower, encountering Shigeru along the way, who is now a Yamabito. Ikuko destroys him with the stick and frees his soul. 21 o'clock. Oh, Ikuko's low stamina gets the better of her. She slowly slouches her way up the tower, but faulty construction nearly causes her to fall. However, Mamoru is there to pull her back up. Ikuko agrees that maybe teaming up with someone is fine this time. 22 o'clock. Few things happening. First, Mamoru and Ikuko meet Ichiko on the tower. Ikuko and Ichiko seem to recognize each other. Ikuko tells Mamoru not to approach Ichiko, and Ichiko seems to address Ikuko directly, saying, "You were lonely too? I've been waiting at the bottom of the sea. We'll be together soon." I assume this is Otoshigo talking to Mother through his avatar here. However, Mamoru and Ikuko run away. They continue to try to climb up the tower without getting shot and or stabbed by Ichiko. On the way, they pass by the Oda house, which is on the tower now for some reason, and they take the opportunity to kill Tomoe and free her soul. Once they reach the top of the tower, they run into Mother, who has also climbed the tower. The tower starts collapsing, and Ichiko falls to the ground, while Mamoru, Ikuko, and Mother are all pulled up into the clouds. So the Ichiko copy, pretty tough, as this is what it took to actually kill her, to fall from an incredible height in the sky, and she still didn't die immediately after this. But meanwhile, Yorito, he recovered from his own fall from the tower. He's real mad. He goes on the attack, wiping out all the Yamire from the school and blowing up Okita with the TNT that he found. Okita had taken the TNT from earlier, but fortunately Yorito was able to recover it from the car, and just shoves it right into Okita's mouth and blows him up. Meanwhile, the most important of plot points, Soji has to go to the bathroom real bad, because he ate the fruit from earlier. Afterward, he has a celebratory cigarette, because he got his lighter back from Tsukasa, and he tosses the cigarette into the toilet, causing a chain reaction of explosions that causes the tower to collapse, which then leads to the death of Ichiko. Soji is dumbstruck over this turn of... I mean, that seems very dangerous. That it would be possible for somehow that chain of explosions to happen. But it did, and that's Soji's biggest relevance to the story. Soji's final boss was diarrhea, I guess. 23 o'clock. Odoshigo rises from the depths of the Red Ocean as he attempts to reunite with Mother. Due to the copy of Ichiko, due to her running around exploring the island, I assume Odoshigo was seeing things through her eyes, so Odoshigo now knows that Mother is up and about, and Odoshigo is real happy about that. Odoshigo's entire motive is that he wants to be reunited with Mother. That does not seem to be reciprocated, though. Mother does not seem to be thinking about Odoshigo at all. All Mother wants to do is free herself from the island and get to the real world, and apparently turn it into a world of Yamabito. So, Odoshigo, maybe wants to get back together with Mom? Just, remember the good times that he had with Mom? And maybe we can have those good times again, girl. What about it? And Mom's like, nah. She's on her own now, and she's fine with that. And Odoshigo just can't get over it, I guess. Just can't get over it. Meanwhile, after destroying Okita, Yorito is confronted by Takeake, who is now a Ko-Yamabito. The two soldiers have their battle, with Yorito coming out on top. Afterwards, Odoshigo reaches the surface and eats Takeake's body. Yorito is able to somehow kill the god with bullets and a big light bulb. Meanwhile, Mamoru and Ikuko have their battle with Mother, and they're able to defeat that god with ancient magic bones that turned into swords, and also the help of Akiko/Kanai, who sacrifices her life to hurt Mother. After the battle, Mamoru and Ikuko are swept away in red water, and back on the surface, another red tsunami covers the island, sweeping away Yorito and Soji. 24 o'clock. Mamoru and Ikuko wake up back in the real world on the real tower. The two of them watch the sunrise while the camera zooms in on Ikuko's face and scary music plays. What happens next? Well, earlier on in the LP, when we looked at Shibito.com, that site indicated that Mamoru was never seen again. The article on that website apparently was written 6 months after the events of Siren 2, and was written by someone saying that they were looking for the missing writer of the magazine, who had also gone missing with a famous author. There's nothing in the game that indicates what happens to Mamoru and Ikuko after this ending. But if we want to take Shibito.com at its word, I guess Mamoru just was never seen by anyone again. What happened to Ikuko? I don't know. That's the answer to that. I don't have that information. You can make your own assumptions. Maybe Ikuko is the last bit of Mother's existence, and maybe that manifested. Maybe Ikuko just got tired of Mamoru. Who can say? We don't know. Well, maybe there's some supplementary material at some point that would say it, but I don't know. In the middle, Yorito, after being hit by the red tsunami, he was transported by the tsunami to another dimension, a world populated by Yamabito where the sun is in a permanent eclipse. Even though the Yamabito appear to be afraid of Yorito, he opens fire on everyone around him, and is now presumably going to live out his life as a monster in the Yamabito world. So, unfortunately for Yorito, the world he goes to is the one where Mother wins, I suppose. He only has so many bullets in that gun. What's he gonna do? I guess he's gonna live the rest of his life killing these Yamis. And finally, Soji was transported by the tsunami to the real world. He wakes up on the beach with Tsukasa. However, the timeline has now been changed, so Ryuko and the rest of the doves never existed. I guess Ikuko was the one exception, though. However, since Ryuko never existed, that means Soji was never suspected of murder of Ryuko, so Soji is no longer a wanted man. Soji, with his new dog Tsukasa, will be able to go back to the mainland. And finally, at 33 o'clock, Kyoya Suda appears on the copy of Yamajima Island. It appears that the copy island still exists, as well as the Yamire and the Yamabito that are on it. Kyoya has been transformed by the Uryin. He's now become some sort of supernatural being who wanders the netherworld to destroy the creatures of darkness. And, presumably, he continues to kill the Yamire and the Yamabito until all have been exterminated. And I guess Kyoya probably vanished after that, to appear when he's needed once again. And that is the story of Siren 2. Basically, one god just wants to get to the real world and turn it into her version of the world. The other god wants to get back with that mom. Just knock tentacles, right? You got it, you know. And everyone else are just caught in that crossfire, with maybe Soji only getting a happy ending. It's still not the happiest of endings because, well, his girlfriend Ryuko is dead. But I'm saying that maybe Soji might be the only survivor of this, because Mamoru maybe didn't survive, and if Mamoru didn't survive, then we don't actually know what the status of Ikuko is. So just like the original Siren only had one survivor, maybe Siren 2 only has one real survivor as well, that being Soji. But that is our little look at the timeline of Siren 2. Siren games can be a little bit difficult to follow because the levels can take place out of order. You can have levels taking place on the same time frame at the same time. So it can be a little bit difficult to follow the story from beginning to end, but this was the time frames put together in chronological order from the Link Navigator from beginning to end. The beginning, where the child Shu and Ryuhei found Kanai on the shore, to the end, where Kyoya appears on the island to destroy everything. It's been our little look at the timeline.